Bath time. I'm too depressed. Do you want to introduce the show?
Yeah, hello everyone. It's Saturday night. It's 8 o'clock, and United have just been beaten 2-0 away at Spurs, and no one is happy. So come cry with us.
Yeah, welcome to the Man United Agenda. Bath time. How you doing, bro? Let's do a little intro. Where did you watch the game? And were you able to take it all in?
Yeah, I watched it in my living room, and I threw quite a lot of stuff around. Lots of amateur dramatics.
Yeah,
Yeah, like I'm very, very unhappy.
me too. Me too. I did the watch along and found that really hard. Drained, emotionally invested. I feel like I don't usually get that emotional watching games, but I felt really at the moment. I just feel like, man, like I've been slapped about a bit, And yeah, we're going to get into this today because we want to
But
know
you did a
what.
good job on the watch along. Like the
Yeah,
team didn't, but you did, and we can only
well,
control ourselves.
hopefully that makes me feel better. It doesn't, but thank you anyway. Anyway, let's get into this. The starting lineup today. What do you think about the starting lineup? With what we knew from last week, we basically picked the same team, didn't he, as last week, and the same concerns which were arisen. But what do you think about the team? I think personally, you should have gone with drop Garnacho and put in Sancho from the start. The reason I felt he should have done that is because Garnacho last week doesn't start games great. I think it's better coming on the pitch late in the game where it's game stretched and can really run at people and give you something different. Defensively, you raised the question last season about him defensively. I think Sancho is a senior player to him. He needs to be starting games. It doesn't look good when he's getting edged for a guy who's just a youth. And I think Sancho should start until Sancho gets full form and then
On the
then
left wing,
yeah, on the left
or
wing. On the left.
okay,
Oh, sorry. Or they could rotate Rashford on the left and whatever, and Sancho down the middle. What he's been playing. So I think talk about starting lineup. I would have changed. That's the one change I would have made. I would have played Sancho instead of Garnacho, and then you got Rashford on the left or down the middle, or Sancho rotating with him. Because I think Sancho keeps the ball better, and we needed ball retention today. And I just didn't see that from Garnacho, even though he got into good positions a few times. So that's the only issue I got with the manager. I think he needs to start playing Sancho, and I would have started him today. Any additions for you?
yeah, I think dropping Garnacho is a bit of a no-brainer for the reasons that you said. It's a bit too much too soon, I think, for him. And I would have, because it's an away game, I would have pushed Mount to left wing, and I'd have put McTominay in Mount's position. But if he'd gone with Ericsson, I'd have been perfectly fine with that. But yeah, I felt we definitely needed a change from Wolves, and once again, Ten Hag just doesn't like. I don't know if he's stubborn or whatever, but he gave them another run out, and I think the time is it's time for changes.
So personnel changes, not system changes.
It's I don't think you can do system changes at this point, but it's
Yeah.
personnel changes and back to basics.
Okay. Here we go. So let's go into the performance. Someone in the comments, it's David Saar. Before we go into that, he said the reason Man United lost the game is because they can't score goals, which we got enough chances to win that game, but everyone wants to blame Mason Mount. What would people say about Mason Mount? I'm not sure.
Well, Mount
Okay,
had a good first half for
yeah,
me. I think in general the team was perfectly fine in the first half, but we went off a cliff in the second half for
yeah.
our physicality, our intensity. I know that there was a little tweak that Ange did with Madison that caused us huge issues, and we never really got to grips with it. Like it was a it was an, the second half was truly dreadful.
Well, here we go. So let's talk about the first half. Obviously, I can't remember the minutes, or whatever. I've done a live watch on, but we had three or chances to score, and I'm talking like headers. One was Rashford, where was that the one with the flick from
The Rabona, yeah, he
Rabona?
was offside though.
Was he?
Yeah, he was off.
Oh, right. Okay, so it would have counted, but it's still,
No.
you got to head that down into the corners, I believe, and he had enough time and space to do that. Yeah, that was a class little Rabona. Well, I call it Pakenka. That's the Pakenka is the chipped
That's the
penalty,
penalty.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, Rabona. Sorry, yeah. Have you ever pulled off a Rabona like that?
I've scored a free kick doing a Rabona once.
You're joking me.
No.
You're serious?
Yeah.
How do you manage that? Like a direct free kick?
Yeah. I used to I used to I used to watch an advert with Harry Kuehl, and in it he took penalties with doing Rabonas, and I just started practicing them, and I'm quite good at them now.
Oh my god!
And in a friendly, I just did one and it went in.
Oh my god! Anyway, let's go on. So the first chance was offside. Who else? It was Bruno had a header, didn't he?
Yeah, really good passage of play as well.
Mm. Do you want to talk us through that? Do you remember much about that? I think it came from the left, maybe.
I think it was probably Casemiro hit a long left-sided ball out to Garnacho, who sort of controlled it, got into the box, laid it into the half space.
Yes.
And probably Shaw, I can't remember. Shaw crossed it in.
You're right.
Crossed it in. Good movement from our forwards. Bruno went through, and he just no conviction.
Okay, so I've got a comment here from AAA. He said Bruno should have scored, and Rashi, little dink over the keeper, Anthony hitting the post. Oh my God, yes, they're all piling up, aren't they, these chances? There's 3 or 4 or 5 maybe goals that we should have scored.
Casemiro's header.
Yeah, Casemiro's header as well, which was saved. Wow. I mean, is it an issue that we talk about performances? Is it an issue that you're happy that we're creating these chances, or is like people are saying we just can't finish our moves off? Yeah, I'm quite happy that we're creating the chances. We had chances to win the game. They should be vexed. But yeah, we should have scored. I mean, as a professional, head it down, get behind it, down and not over the bar. It shouldn't be in position.
Yeah, the
like
ball
that.
should bounce on the goal line. It's a basic of heading, and it's when you're not challenged, it's not difficult. Like at least I don't think it is. But I like heading footballs. But in terms of our chances, I think 2 of them came from our press, which is good.
Yeah.
But I still don't think that we're creating enough through movement and passing. Like all of these, apart from the Bruno chance, the rest of them was sort of like high intensity, just sort of getting there and then getting a sort of reasonable, but no control to them. I don't think that they're manufactured chances. I think they're reactionary chances. And if you want to win something, you got to be making those chances instead of relying on the opposition to do something wrong.
Totally agree. Jeff saying here again, we are not finishing our chances, which will cost us this season, let alone this game. The penalty shout. I think that was a penalty. We had a shout against Wolves where it hit their arm. I think this was more of a penalty than that one there. And there was one against Palestri as well late in the game. 2 penalty shouts that I believe one at least should have been given. The first one, the hand was out there and it's hit his hand. He shouldn't have his hand out. Surely, by the book, that should be a penalty. And the second one, Palestri went down, not on his own accord. He was the guy put his foot there and he chipped over his foot in the box. I'm like, nah, man, I don't want to complain and be like, oh, or whatever. But I just think, surely it's a foul. Surely, come on.
I mean, the Palestri one, I think that if he'd been in control of the football and it wasn't going off the pitch, probably is a penalty. The first one, I think that's a stonewall penalty, but I keep coming back to something I saw in Chelsea versus Liverpool, where there was a corner and someone handled it, and that wasn't given as a penalty. The one against Wolves wasn't given as a penalty. The Premier League appear to be quite consistent with this handball rule of if you're too close, it doesn't matter what's going on. So maybe it's once again we just need to relearn the rules.
Damn. Well, that for me is enough to say at least score 1 goal. We didn't score 1 goal. So first half, I thought we played pretty well. I remember at half time he came onto the watch along, and I was quite encouraged by this. Okay, we've got enough here. We continue like this, we're going to eventually score and break them down. And so the first half performance was okay for me. Towards the last 10 minutes of the first half, they started to come back. it's not, when I say comeback, had a bit more possession in our half, but I felt we dealt with it pretty well. There was an instant where they hit the bar and the cross and the post in one move, but apart from that, I don't think they broke us down or they were sort of too much for us. I felt we could manage them. It's just other areas where we let them in, which I would just say now, lack of work rate. We can talk about the goals in detail because I've been seeing them on my screen just recently. But yeah, I just think we just switched off completely in the second half and allowed them to get the momentum and get the crowd behind them. And from then, we were always sort of playing catch up. But first half, I will say, even though I'm vexed now, I will say I'm kind of encouraged because I felt played away from home, half time 0-0, had the better chances. When we were under pressure, soaked it up pretty well, quite compact. I could live with that.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that we were making better passing angles with Mount and Bruno in the first half. They were helping out Wan-Bissaka and Shaw with their movement. Anthony was getting straight passes, but when you get a straight pass, just knock it into the middle. And maybe this is the problem, that there's everyone knows that there's not enough people in the middle for Man United.
Yeah.
It's Ten Hag has a system where he wants the ball out wide, overloading and 1v1s, and the wingers that we have, or at least the people that are providing the width, are not good enough in 1v1 situations. Like Alejandro and Anthony munched up all match. And I'm not even sure if Rashford would have had much joy out on the wing, but his best moments came out on the wing. And I think that there is a huge structural issue at Manchester United with what Ten Hag wants and what the playing squad are capable of.
Good points. Aces in the house. He said United season officially finished. He's also saying Arsenal will destroy United easily. That we got them in 2 weeks' time, I believe. That's going to be a trip to the Emirates in North London again. Jeff said here, watch the rest of the matches. Webb wants the match called on the pitch, not VAR. So I still think the referee should have given that though, Jeff. We were calling for you in the watch along, see what you felt at the time. Ace is saying Nottingham Forest next week. Can United get a result at Old Trafford? Double A is saying here we need 2 more midfielders where we play one or Bruno or Mount alongside Casemiro and new type of midfielder plus another striker. The midfield is essential, is it? Mason Mount completed 11 passes in 80 minutes. They're coming out with the Mason Mount stats now. Like last week, it was 0-0-0. Ace is saying here, it's crazy that United get dominated in the transfer market every season. Double A is saying Elanga might burn us next week. Any thoughts on those comments? Anything you want to touch on?
Yeah, I mean, we're getting to a point where there are a couple of players who spent big money on, like Anthony, Casemiro, and Mount, and then you've got Rashford, Sancho, and Bruno, and all of them can't go into the pot together. Like we've got to get someone next to Casemiro, fixed in the middle of the pitch, like a landmark, like Christ the Redeemer in Rio de Janeiro. Yeah. Someone who's always there. We need a striker that is playing centrally. Yeah. There's too many square pieces going into round holes at the moment. And I really, really want some changes against Forest. Got to tighten that midfield up. We've got to control play more. I think Eriksen has got to start. He gave us Spurs, when they got back in the last 10 minutes of the second half, they did it through second phase play, where they Casemiro was outnumbered in the middle of the pitch. So Bruno and Mount had to come a bit more central, and then they're able to get it out to the width and stretch us. And it's because we don't have enough central midfielders in the team. So
this call from, obviously in the preview show, 3 people in the comments mentioned that McTominay should be starting. Do you think they're being made to look like geniuses right now? And yourself as well, because you've been stating that McTominay should play. You said at the start of the show that Mount should have played left wing, McTominay would have played in midfield 3, and we would be more compact in that way. Do you think that's a good shout going forward? If you're talking about changes.
Yeah, I think certainly for an away game, I would stick McTominay, and certainly for a game where Spurs' midfield isn't that great. What seemed to happen in the second half, where they absolutely made us look like chumps, was that Maddison went into the interior, and I think that Casemiro. I told you in the first half, I thought Casemiro was paying extra special attention to him, and he was getting pulled out of position.
Yeah.
And then Bissouma and this Sarr guy were like, they just had a red carpet to just go through the middle of the team. And if McTominay's there, I don't think he's letting that happen. I don't think Bissouma is as good as he looked tonight, like on the ball. He just had so much space.
Yeah.
And it was their physicality that was really kind of doing us. And there's one player in the United team in the midfield that has physicality, and it's Scott McTominay. And I think that the time has come where we've got to get back to basics, and we've got to have intensity, running, and strength in the midfield, because that the own goal that they scored, they booted the ball into zone 14, and no one was able to. No one had any drive or determination to go and get it, like to make it their ball. And whatever you say about McTominay, he isn't letting the ball get played into the centre of the pitch without blood being spilled.
Yeah. Comments. Anthony is too predictable. Mount isn't good enough. We need to have a striker. And Mason Green back. I don't know. Yeah, all right. Ace is saying here, Rashford has to start from the left, Sancho on the right, and Martial out front. By the way, I thought Martial's few little touches back to goal. Green
that's Ollie's dream. Sancho, Martial, and Rashford. That's what he wanted.
Mason Greenwood's getting sacked, says UK Strange. Lack of a striker and hard tackling, box to box 8 is key, says Jeff. Rachel Riley will stop Sport United if we don't. Who's Rachel Riley?
She is the new Carol Vorderman. She does the
Countdown.
numbers on Countdown, and like respect to her for coming out and saying something. We haven't seen anything from the huge amount of United fans. Everyone's scared and being quiet about it, and she's come out and had a couple of vowels and some consonants.
Get Maguire in now, says Grace. How you doing? David saying that Tommy is not good enough. We're not going back to that nonsense midfield again. So there's a bit of indecisive.
We finished higher with McTominay and Fred than we did with Casemiro. Like Casemiro is becoming a real issue, and it's not just him; it's the fitness in the team is absolutely diabolical. And Ten Hag will be out of a job sooner rather than later if he can't improve the physical levels, because they're not good enough. We got beaten by physicality in the midfield. There weren't enough people there. There weren't enough runners. All our goals were runners from deep, with no one taking responsibility for it. And I mean, like Casemiro was terribly positioned for the first goal. He didn't react properly. Shaw was more concerned about where Alejandro was, which is something that he did for Eriksen actually against Wolves as well. We don't have enough defensive-minded players that understand their role of stopping cutbacks and then going and fighting for it. Like Casemiro was ball watching. First goal, sure, dreadful. And then like the second one, there's just like Martinez, he's unlucky. But Ben Davies is a sodding left back. Like that was probably Bruno's man or something, but we decided like to put Bruno out to the right wing. Like we need to get our players in the positions that they play, and we need to protect the centre of the pitch. Annoying. Right, what's Bart got to say for himself?
Well, Bart's saying here, United needs someone to control the tempo and help Casemiro out. I agree, good point. Two Marauding number 8 is not the answer. Also, Wan-Bissaka doesn't tuck in properly, so it becomes easy to beat the press. That's from Bart. Bart's also saying Casemiro looks to be shot physically, which doesn't augur well as he has 4 years to go in his contract. We've got Aces saying here, Glazer's sell has mentally affected the squad. Jeff saying here he's got to go. Big up, Jeff, man. Hope to see you soon. Thanks for all your contributions. Grace is saying here the club is player FC. These players are just not good enough. The whole team means gutting. It's the same players year after year with few additions as well. Just to go through those goals that we conceded. So the first goal, I felt Garnacho was square on like that when you knew the ball was going to go out wide. He started squared up to the man. when you know the ball's going out wide, get ready to turn and go, you know. And then by the time he twisted and ran back. He sort of jogged back to get close and allowed Kulusevski to get into the box and make that pass. That annoyed me.
It's classic fatigue, Amonde. What you've just described there. A player flat-footed is classic fatigue. Like, my fitness is really good. Like, and I always look for players that are flat-footed because I know I can do them. And Garnacho, flat-footed, the conditioning isn't good enough.
Fair enough. And like you say, let the guy get into the box, cross the ball, cross the 6-yard box. It's always going to be dangerous. And Sarr made a run. I think Mason Mount, I'm looking at him. I really have to analyse it more, but I felt Mount saw him. You've got to go with him all the way. Don't just stop till you get to the area where there's numbers.
I thought when I saw it happen, there was a bit of miscommunication between Mount and Casemiro about who was like taking him.
I mean, I was going to ask you about this because for me, I think, well, if you've got to run and you see this guy coming, it's the communication. What you do, you can't telepathically say it. And you can't, if you say, but is it enough time when the ball comes into the box to really organise and shove and pass a man off? I don't know. I think Mount, if you're a coach, you're doing a video analysis, they would say, well, why didn't you go with the guy all the way? You ran half the way and you stopped when he got into the box and let the guy go through. And then you're like, your thoughts, please, on that.
Well, I mean, Casemiro is poorly positioned there, but it might be because of that miscommunication. Like, the job of the pivot on the near side is to protect the penalty spot and cutbacks, and then the second midfielder is meant to be getting in to make a back three. Mount, even though he was playing as a sort of like as an interior number 8. Mount was inverting into the pivot with Casemiro and probably should have been making a back three. So, but the thing is he's got so far to run, and whilst both of them and Shaw and Alejandro are all at fault, I think that's a system problem more than anything. You're asking a huge deal of Mount, who did a lot of very good defensive work in the first half, to get back into that space from where he was, and and then second phase play him on day.
Yeah. Agreed. So that's the first goal. Bart saying here, Rashi's not a natural number 9. The wages he's on. And also, Maguire's dug his heels in. If results continue like this, Ten Hag will lose face. Mason has the quality to be a Man United player, but he isn't suited to the system. And with him, Eriksen, Bruno, especially vying for a spot when United have no one to replace Casemiro, is very strange. King T'Challa is saying, I was told De Gea was the reason that we couldn't play Ten Hag football. We now have a modern sweeper keeper, but the same issues as last season. De Gea took hell of abuse last year. He's owed an apology. David Sarr, Luke Shaw was at fault for the first goal. Should have went to tackle and tell Garnacho to cover him. I don't know. We'd have to look at that again. I think it's Garnacho more so, but I can respect your point. Bart saying here, United have lost their away games to each of the last. We noticed that. Okay. King Charles saying the forward line and midfield balance should have always been the priority this summer. And Bart saying here, United were denied a penalty, but it probably evens out from yesterday and from last week, he means. And big up to Pranay. I don't know if you've seen Pranay on the show halftime, but he always seems to make some good comments. He's saying here, yet again, another game that shows why we shouldn't have spent 60 million on Mount and spent half that on Amrabat and get another striker like the Iranian guy, I think that is from Porto or someone.
I don't think that like Amrabat improves us the way that people think that he improves us. What you might get from Amrabat is that Amrabat is a first phase player, so he's a build-up player. And King Charlo was like talking about De Gea earlier. We had no issues from our build-up play this evening. Like we got the ball out. There was one slight dodgy pass from Onana where Richarlison nearly pinched it, but apart from that, we were absolutely fine. We got out of the first line of pressure very, very easily. Like Amrabat is a first phase player, and he improves your build-up play. He drops into a back three, and the reason we might improve from him is that that's what Mainu was doing on pre-season, but Amrabat isn't great in the air. He's not a physical monster compared to sort of Premier League players. There's a very big reason why lots of midfielders are going for £100 million and Amrabat is at 25 million. Because he's not really a sort of possession-based player from what I've seen of him, and I don't think he gets into our first team if we sign him, and we need players that go straight into the team. Mount, I'll give a bit more time to Mount. There's a lot there that I like.
Okay, fair enough. So the second goal, obviously, that buried us. Obviously, we had chances to score. We had the penalty shouts. Not going to touch on that. It's the second goal with Ben Davies getting to the position. I think they broke up the play. It was Maddison in the centre of the park, played a long pass out to the left, and the ball, he just stood there and was unmarked. It was sort of played into Ben Davies, who slotted it home. Obviously, he got a deflection, but still, the disappointment was not him getting picked up at all. I'd have to go and look at why or whatever. I don't know right now, but just thinking how you let a man drift into the box like that zone, and not have a free shot on goal or a pass on into goal, which goes into the back of the net.
I just think it's that like we sort of like. I think we got out-tacticked very hard in the second half with the change in Maddison, and I also think that Ange probably, as most people know, we tend to, when things are going badly, stick Bruno on the right wing. And I think that when Bruno went to the right wing and Palestri came on, I think the instruction during the week to Davis was, these guys aren't good defensively. Like, run past them.
Yeah.
Like, so I think they were targeted for that.
I felt they were running, knowing that no one's going to pick them up. And that's just, it's disgraceful. I don't want to say words like disgrace and all that kind of thing, but I just think, come on, bruv. It got to the point where
it is a disgrace.
Yeah, no, but I don't want to be like, oh, disgrace or like that. I'm just saying, what's disgraceful for me when you play football is that if you get beat by skill or great tactics, whatever, then fine. But when people are just making runs into space and being picked up, no one goes with them, you got to question people. Say, why are you working? And that's where things are disgraceful because
they're not fit enough. They're not defensively minded enough. They haven't seen Final Destination. They're like one of the things that annoys me on Monday is that I think that the way Ten Hag plays football with a complete disregard to second phase play is that he just turns it into like punching in a phone box, and we'll try and rely on the quality of our defenders. Shout out to Varane, very good game. We'll rely on the quality of our defenders, and then we'll boot it up the pitch and do you on transitions. So, like Rashford and Bruno don't come deep enough. Where like we don't seem to think that we should work in the midfield to get ourselves up the pitch until Eriksen comes on, who can't play ping pong football.
Yeah, good point. Bart saying here on the plus side, last season's defeat to Brentford resulted in United buying Casemiro. Maybe he can buy a couple of players now through that desperation. Frene saying, my reasoning is that last season we may have only scored 58 goals in the Prem, but we still created plenty. We need a CDM to help us slow the game and the striker to help Rashford and put him on the
those are great points. It's just that Amrabat doesn't really fit that profile. What we need is someone with much more sideways passing, who can also operate in tight areas. I don't think that's Amrabat, but I understand your point, and it's an obvious but a good one.
Okay, we're going to go to player ratings now, because coming to an end of this, man, it's depressing. Player ratings, I thought Onana played pretty well today. Did what he had to do. His command and keeper, his distribution is pretty good. Like you said, there's one shaky moment where it nearly got pinched, but otherwise, I mean, he orchestrates a lot of stuff. There's one time he didn't want to go short. He said, guys, just push up, we're going up now. Because he knows what he's doing. He's confident, shows enough confidence to sort of say, yeah, I know what I'm talking about. I'm going to have a go at Maguire when we make a mistake. I'm going to push out. I'm going to tell you where to be. I'll tell you where I want you to be. He's orchestrating things, and I like that. Commanding keeper, made some good saves down low. I'm happy with him.
I'm really pleased with him, and I was most pleased with him when Varane went over to Richarlison to ask if he was okay, and Onana went, "Don't talk to that pigeon," just waved him off. I thought he had a really good game, Onana, and he's instantly improved an area we really needed to improve in. Hit an amazing ball to Garnacho in the first
Yeah,
half,
and
pinging
that's
it
coming
out
from
to
the halfway line.
Wan-Bissaka. Yeah,
That's from the
like
halfway line. He's coming off the.
it was like Paul Scholes.
Yeah.
Like maybe he's the player that we need next to Casemiro.
All right, Perene's also second in that. He said, Alana, I love him no matter what anyone says. The defence, so you mentioned Varane. I'm talking defence on the whole. I thought Martinez was pretty good, showed his quality. He's sometimes bringing balls down, things that people just take for granted. Bring the balls down, nice first touch, head up, looking for passes, to make things happen. There's one pass where he switched to play on a half volley. I thought, wow, that's impressive. I can't do that. He's a top player, but yeah, let's just get things settled down, and these top players need to start performing more. Right back, Wan-Bissaka, I thought he'd done really well in the first half. He got dragged maybe because of the yellow card. Otherwise, I thought he was doing enough. He's getting in positions high up the pitch, in my opinion. And Luke Shaw, a couple of times in the first half, a bit rash for a sliding tackle. Didn't do anything. I think people talk about the goal. He was responsible, maybe because he should have dictated where Garnacho should be. But apart from that, I can't go more than a 5. But your man Varane, do you want to talk about him? Because the other players.
I thought Varane was really good. He won like 90% of his duels very comfortably as well. There's one shaky moment with Son out in a wide area where he got his stride a bit wrong. Yeah. But I thought that Varane's passing, just not great, but he didn't really hinder us in particular. Didn't break lines. Shaw and Wan-Bissaka, they only really operate well in wide areas, to be honest. Shaw was all right apart from the goal. Looked like he was losing his head towards the end. Wan-Bissaka and Anthony do not work together, and they both make each other look poorer than they are. I thought that when Delot and Palestri came on, we looked much more cohesive on that side, and I think I'd like Anthony out of the team for next week. I don't think he offers enough. I think when he receives a straight ball, he doesn't make third man combination. He tries a little trick, and he isn't able to dominate his opponents with separation and pace.
Bath time, well said. It's time. I think it's time to drop him and bring Palestri on or someone else. Give them a chance. These guys must be sitting there watching. He's not productive that way. I'm not saying it's the end of Anthony, but sometimes you drop someone, they can come back stronger and actually say, actually, I need to work on this and do this a lot better.
If Dan James was still here, would you put Dan James ahead of Anthony?
I would play Palestri at the moment.
Okay.
I'm not going to get into that Dan James thing because I had issues with him when he was at the club as well. But going on to midfield, Casemiro, we know maybe that's the midfield, maybe. Just Casemiro. Casemiro, I thought, poor game. I agree with you on that. And the other
went
guy,
to like number 10 in the second half as well. Got ran through by everyone. Won a couple of headers. Like he should have scored, but it looks more and more to me that if you play Casemiro, he's got to be further up the pitch and he's got to have 2 men around him. And I think that there's a big problem developing with Casemiro and his lack of physicality and diving in the whole time. He's got to go back to basics.
What about the other two? So we started with Mount and Bruno, the so-called midfield, but they were
good first half, terrible second half. Mount went off a cliff in the second half. He played well in the first half, but he had to do so much running. I think that his physical level dropped. Someone said he completed 11 passes or whatever, but he was offering angles a lot. But when you saw Eriksen came on, Eriksen with less mobility but more experience, just seemed a much better fit. And Bruno, he's playing with the safety off. Like there was only one stupid Hollywood ball in that game, but I wonder if he's being a bit too restricted by the system. Like Kevin De Bruyne loses the ball all the bloody time for Man City, but he's the only one that's allowed to because of the quality he has. And maybe that's how we play Bruno. Just play him as a second striker.
Good shout. Garnacho, Rashford, and Anthony. You touched on Anthony. I do agree with you. I'm going to go back and watch the show afterwards. You made a really good point about Anthony and why he needs to be dropped. No disrespect or anything, just because other players deserve a chance. He's a 70, 80 million pound player. He's getting sort of a main starter these days. Maybe we need to start someone else. Rashford, I don't think he's done enough, to be fair. we make excuses, say he's not a number 9, but I think you need to play where he can and do what you're supposed to do. I just think he didn't hold the ball well, got pinched a couple of times. He's not in the game, so he starts drifting out to get himself involved in the game and ends up being in areas where he shouldn't be. And there's, like you said, we need, what did you call it? The statue in Brazil, Jesus.
Christ the Redeemer.
Yeah, Christ the Redeemer. It's a great point again.
You need a landmark.
Yeah, you need a landmark like that, and he wasn't that today. But there's no excuse. You don't say, "Oh, that's not his position." You should be able to, at least show.
He's played there enough to know the basics.
Exactly.
Like, and then he wasn't holding the ball up, and that's okay because that's like he's not a striker, so not being able to hold the ball up and compete and stuff is fine. But his head dropped on the 60th minute. He was making poor decisions and poor runs. And I don't think that he had the fight in him to go and like really take the game by the scruff of his neck. He wasn't looking to dominate his opponent, and he doesn't look fit. He doesn't look like he's at the physical condition he was in January last year, where he was burning people. Like Porro is a virgin to the Premier League, and he just duffed him up all night.
Yeah. I think you said it all. I can't do a man of the match. I'm not going to do that, especially with
Varane.
But Varane, I could take that, or the goalkeeper. But yeah, just very disappointing. We've got Nottingham Forest next week. You said we need to make changes. It's not system change, personal change. I'm with you on that one for sure. Look, it's not nice losing. It's start of the season. We saw when we lost last season, we made a difference. We came back, played Liverpool, and 8 days later, and we won that game and turned it around. I think they need a slapping up. If I'm a manager of Man United Football Club, I'm going to tell these guys because, it's just the fundamentals you need to improve. Mm-hmm. The attitude needs to improve, and that's the only way we're going to start getting better. But yeah, I'm done with this show. Honestly, I'm really. I don't usually get like this, but I'm really disappointed.
Yeah.
With the way we went down to Spurs. Last words from you, Bath Time, about performance or what we need to do going forward, or any sort of anything we need to tweak. Like, I know the Casemiro issue is big for you, but anything other than that we need to tweak going forward.
Yeah, we need to tweak our right hand side of Wan-Bissaka and Anthony. Teams are letting the free man be Wan-Bissaka. And he's doing all right. Like, he's producing crosses that are decent chances and things. He's doing all right. But he's not linking up with the midfield or with Anthony well enough. That's a big area of concern. We need someone next to Casemiro in the centre of the pitch. We need our energy levels up. And I think we need a leader. And I think it's time that, exactly the same as Liverpool last year, I think we need to get Delot and McTominay in the team because of their work rate and their tactical discipline. And as I told you at the start of the season, I thought we were going to probably see the same thing as last season with 2 poor performances, trying to play a system we're not suited to, and then we're going to have to go back to basics. And I expect against Forest, back to basics.
Yeah. Respect, man. Respect a little bit of what you just said. Do you think Mainu instead of Mount would have improved the balance of the team, or do you think Fred and Casemiro pivot was a good foundation? You want to answer that quickly before I go to the last couple of questions?
Not really. I mean, it's just AI comments, really.
Chelsea signed 3 centre midfielders within a couple of weeks. United are struggling to sign 2 in the window. It's disappointing. DK, how you doing, man? He watched the game with us. He's saying, tired of hearing Rashford getting dragged. In American football, playing Rashford at number 9 is like asking a wide receiver to play running back. Over my head, I don't know much about gridiron.
I don't know. He's a forward, and he plays in a forward area, and he should. There are basics that you need, which is like making angles with your run or staying central to allow other players to do stuff, receiving the ball correctly, and having fight. And Rashford didn't have any of them today. So it's like we're not dragging him based off like our imagination. We saw what happened, and it's not an excuse for the basics to say he's playing out of position. Like Bruno playing out of position. All our players are bloody playing out of position.
Pranay is saying here, I simply refuse to believe that the club believes an 18-year-old in Mainu can be relied upon for Manchester United. I think with Mainu, he does the right things for us and exactly what we need, regardless of his age. or not trying to put pressure on the young man, but I think in the games I saw in pre-season, I know it's different pre-season to proper games, but I think he done enough for me to say, okay, he ticks the boxes, he retains the ball really well, he's intelligent, he's strong, he's wiry, he's a good addition to our squad, and I would really want to see him.
Lot riding on him though.
Well,
there's a lot riding on him, and like Garnacho, was going to be, people wanted him at number 7 and stuff. Like, I think that Mainu has got a great future and will be a good player, but it's a hell of a player at 18 to go into midfield, like, and sort of dominate and make a difference. That's probably why Jude Bellingham went for 150 million or whatever. You very rarely get midfielders that can come in at that age and sort a game out.
Yeah. Okay. Good comments from you guys as usual. We're going to sign out now. We'll be back on Monday. I was going to say Sunday. We're getting a day off on Sunday. But anything planned for the rest of the weekend, bath time?
Bit of Baldur's Gate 3, some running, and I might watch the second half again, in particular the goals, and really forensically work out which one of those puddings is at fault. But I suspect it's all of them.
Yeah, I might do the same. Got friendly tomorrow as well. Hopefully we can get enough numbers out there. If you're watching, big up Woodlands United, and let's get another win, or let's get our first win of the friendly pre-season. Yeah, if you don't mind, guys, put the work in. If you don't mind, and make me proud. Bath time. Thanks again, guys. In the comments, thanks again. We're signing out. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday and your Sunday, and we'll be back on Monday at 8:30. Good night.